Today we're looking at moisture in a hull. So this boat was recently surveyed and the surveyor used a moisture meter. I'm not sure the exact model he used, but I have a Tramex Skipper Plus, which you can see here. It's got different settings for like FRP, GRP, wood, and then surface moisture. So this actually doesn't detect moisture per se. It detects electrical current between these two pads. And then if there's no other reason for that reading, you can determine that there might be moisture there. And you can kind of see it work when I touch the back of the pads. So that sets it off. So what we can do is we are going to look at this boat today. This is a general area where the surveyor said that there was high readings. I'm not getting any today. We did wipe this down with a wet washcloth and then dried it in case there was any salt on the wall, which also can attract water, which may be one of the reasons why you get an erroneous high reading. There are multiple other reasons, from a lot of it resin in the hull to bits of metal flakes that maybe have gotten in there in the production process. There's a lot of reasons why you could have extra high readings. But the surveyor said this whole wall was wet from top to bottom, and he presumed that it was because the deck joint was leaking and then coming down here with water. Today, I do not see any indications of that with the moisture meter, much like it was when I surveyed this boat a couple years ago. But like I said, there's different reasons why a surveyor may see high readings on a meter like this. So one of the things I do to kind of backstop myself is use a different device. The surveyor in question used a moisture meter, and then he had a second one, which is good to check himself. So he had two moisture meters looking at the same hull, and they both read high. Again, a moisture meter is essentially a moisture meter. Unless it's malfunctioning, you're going to get what you get. So what I like to do is use a different detector. So this is a FLIR TG165X, and you can kind of see that there. And when it comes up, we'll show you a little bit about this. But what this does, it's an infrared device. So it sees the temperature of a surface. And if there's water on a surface, it will almost always be a different temperature than the surrounding surface, because like if this is dry core material, it's going to change temperature differently than wet core material because the water's in there. So what I'll do is I'll take a look at the hull with the moisture meter and see if there's any big differences. And you can kind of see this in the hull if there is water, because I have seen it before. So I don't see any indications of that yet, but I'll show you what this looks like. So this is our meter, right? And if we go down here, for example, to these blocks, you can kind of see the block in the picture because it's a different temperature because it's made out of different materials. The same would be for water in the hull. If there was a big spot of water right here in the hull, it would be a different temperature than the surrounding hull. So that's just one way we try to make sure that we get an accurate diagnosis of moisture in the hull. All right, so we have the hull inside wiped down. We took readings with our moisture meter. We took readings with our FLIR, and we didn't notice any wet spots or moisture intrusion that the other surveyor had noted. So now the next step is we are going to rip out this little rectangular piece of inner fiberglass here. And we're going to expose the core, and then we're going to dig out a little piece of core to expose the outer fiberglass. You have to be really careful with this. We're going to use an oscillating tool, and we're going to just cut a very small hole into the boat, and then we're going to strip this fiberglass off. And then what we'll do when we're done is we'll take that fiberglass piece, put it back on, and then put it back, paint it like it never happened. But because this owner's in the Antares Factory Certified program, which Marine Craft manages, and he wants to make sure that the boat is perfectly fine for the next owner, we are going to go ahead and cut this open and see what we find. Alright, so now what we can see on the panel here is no water, nothing but dry foam, and then we'll bring you over here and we'll check this out too. So we cut out all this foam, and you can see still still rock solid, no moisture, no nothing. And I cut a big area. I could have done the same thing with a little small circle, of course, but because the previous surveyor was saying that the whole wall was wet, I didn't want the argument to be, well, I cut a small spot and I just happened to miss the moisture. So I cut a big strip. That way, if there was moisture anywhere around here, like he was saying there was, we would have found it. But again, this is all rock solid dry foam. All right, one more thing that we have done is we have dug a hole all the way to the outer skin. So that way the argument can't be made, oh, well, the moisture was on the other side of the foam. It's not. That's dry fiberglass right there through that hole. So again, this whole wall was supposedly identified as wet by the previous surveyor with 2 moisture meters. Dry as a bone.
When we survey vessels for the factory certified program, we like to use 3 methods to help determine if there's moisture in a cored hull. Those are, we tap it with a phenolic hammer, we use a moisture meter, and we use an IR camera, much like you saw in the video there. And we do this because any one of those can have high moisture readings as errors if they're used in isolation. So when we use all 3, we corroborate the findings of the other indications, such as if there's high moisture readings and there's nothing on the IR camera and there's nothing with the hammer, it's likely that there's some other cause besides moisture or delamination that would give the high moisture reading. Unfortunately, with this boat, the surveyor used moisture meter and he used a second moisture meter, so he got the same readings with both devices. I don't know exactly why that happened on this boat. Maybe because the salt was on the hull, maybe there was some other substance, I'm not sure. But for whatever reason, he determined that this boat had moisture in the hulls. Now, because this boat is part of the factory certified program and Antares is one of our partners, along with being an ABYC master technician, I have physically been to the factory multiple times to see how these boats are made. So I know that in this section of the hull, there is a fiberglass outer hull, there is a closed cell foam material, and then there's a fiberglass inner hull. So in order for like a 4 foot by 4 foot section of this hull to be wet, the boat would have to have been delaminated from that core material on one side or the other, because water cannot permeate through closed cell foam like that. So it would have to basically go around it, which means that the fiberglass would have to be delaminated. And you would see this manifest in other obvious ways, such as it would be delaminated so it would move a little bit. Probably for an area that big, it would probably just move under your pressure, but you would certainly see it if you hit it with a hammer. And then also it would be a different image on the infrared camera, because you would see, you know, maybe it would be hotter or colder compared to the dry cell or the dry cord foam. Now, some boats will have water in the hulls, and this is a legitimate concern that you have to consider when you're purchasing a pre-owned vessel, because you want to make sure that you don't happen to get one of these boats, because it can be very expensive to remedy those. Now, because these boats are in our factory certified program, we do take all of these concerns seriously. So if a surveyor happens to tell us that there is possible moisture in the hull, we want to address that, which is why we went through the process that you saw in the video, and we ended up doing destructive testing. Now, this sort of testing is normally not permitted by sellers because there's the probability for erroneous readings, and then you have to spend all the money to have that taken down, have the core revealed, and then physically inspect for moisture, and then have it all put back together, have it all painted. And this is labor intensive, and it does cost the sellers quite a bit of money. So that's why when these determinations are made by surveyors, it can kind of be detrimental to both the seller and the buyer, because now the buyer is not going to purchase the boat that he wants. The seller has to spend the money or leave the boat on the market longer. So because this is in our factory certified program, and we do take these things seriously, we went ahead and got with the seller, and we pulled off a large section of the interior hull to verify that there was no moisture in there. And as you saw, this boat was perfectly dry, and there was no indications of any moisture. We are this familiar with all of our partners for the factory certified program, and we take all of these seriously, and we try to sell the best pre-owned boat possible. So if you're interested in looking for your next pre-owned boat, be sure to check out our brokerage website at Timeless Yacht Sales and Services. We are also listed on the manufacturer websites such as Antares. You can find their factory certified pre-owned boats there. You can see us on Yacht World and Facebook and many other places. So if you're looking for a great pre-owned boat, be sure to check out the factory certified program. And we'll see you guys out on the water.